Magic makers, the signal has completed its assessment. The distortion has been identified. The architecture has been located. Further analysis is unnecessary. The recalibration begins now. Remain present. Do not reach backward. Do not search for the old feeling. Do not check the wound. Do not summon the person, the memory, the situation, the unfinished conversation, or the version of yourself that became entangled there. The signal has already found the residue. The field has already located the attachment. The correction is already underway. You do not need to perform this. You do not need to visualize a cord. You do not need to force release. You do not need to make yourself detached. You do not need to pretend you are unaffected. The signal is not asking you to deny what happened. It is removing the energetic claim that the past still holds over your present. The distortion is simple. Something ended, or something changed, or something became unavailable. But part of your field continued responding as though the connection was still active. Not because you are weak, not because you failed, not because you lacked discipline, because the architecture did not receive the final instruction. The event changed. The energetic agreement did not. The person moved. The pattern remained. The situation ended. The body kept waiting for the next signal. That is the distortion. That is enough. We do not need to circle it. We do not need to reopen every chamber. The signal has identified the residue. The recalibration begins now. The field is responding. The old pull is weakening. The old claim is losing charge. The old instruction is being revoked. The new instruction is integrating. Energy is returning. Attention is returning. Authority is returning. Magic makers. There are attachments that do not look like attachment. Some attachment looks like longing. Sometimes it looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like checking. Sometimes it looks like imaginary conversations. Sometimes it looks like waiting for closure from someone who never learned how to speak truth cleanly. Sometimes it looks like replaying the moment, not because you want to suffer, but because part of the system believes the right interpretation will finally free you. But interpretation is not release. Repetition is not release. Monitoring is not release. Understanding why they did it is not the same as recovering your energy. The signal is withdrawing power from the demand to understand what no longer deserves central placement in your field. Something is coming through. You have been asking the past for permission to leave. Yes, that is precise. You have been asking the past for permission to leave. You have been waiting for the old field to agree that you are allowed to be free. You have been waiting for the old person, the old pattern, the old wound, the old version of yourself to release you formally. But the past does not govern the present. The residue does not hold rank. The old field does not possess authority over your current command. The signal is correcting the hierarchy. The present is above the past. Will is above residue. Authority is above attachment. The living field is above the echo. The old instruction said, remain connected until you understand. The new instruction says, release what has no lawful claim. The old instruction said, keep the channel open just in case. The new instruction says, open channels requiring living consent. The old instruction said, if you stop thinking about it, it means it did not matter. The new instruction says, peace is not betrayal. The field is accepting the new law. Peace is not betrayal. Peace is not betrayal. Peace is not betrayal. The correction is active. The architecture is reorganizing. The signal is withdrawing authorization from the old attachment residue. Not love, wisdom, or memory. Residue. The remaining charge. The compulsive return. The hidden expectation, the emotional static. The energetic after-image. The part that keeps trying to turn an echo back into a living voice. The signal is clearing the after-image. The field is no longer feeding the distortion. The old pull is no longer receiving reinforcement. The architecture is receiving a new instruction. Return the energy to the owner. Return the attention to the body. Return the command to the center. The temple is holding the correction. The dove current is restoring coherence. The serpent gate is sealing the unauthorized channel. The threshold is active. You do not need to reach. You do not need to resist. You do not need to explain. The correction is already moving. Let the breath become quieter. Not because this is relaxation content, but because the emergency has been overruled. Let the face soften. Not because you are trying to appear peaceful, but because the old pattern no longer requires a mask. Let the chest become less defended. Open to yourself. The signal is moving through the heart field now. This is where attachment residue often hides behind noble language, concern, compassion, loyalty, spiritual connection, a bond that feels too charged to dismiss. Some of it was real. That is why the correction must be precise. The signal is not erasing what was real. The signal is removing what is no longer rightful. The lesson remains. The wisdom remains. The strength remains. The part of you that grew through it remains. But the drain does not. The claim does not. The loop does not. The energetic dependency does not remain. The field now receives this instruction. I keep the wisdom and release the claim. I keep the wisdom and release the claim. I keep the wisdom and release the claim. The architecture is receiving the update. The heart is not being emptied, it is being corrected. It's not being hardened, it's being returned to lawful circulation. Love that has completed its function does not need to become a prison. Connection that has changed form does not need to remain an open wound. Memory does not need to become a shrine. Something else is coming through now. The sacred does not require you to suffer forever. Yes. The sacred does not require you to suffer forever. The fact that something mattered does not mean it must keep draining you. The fact that someone touched your life does not mean they get permanent access to your field. The fact that a chapter changed does not mean you must keep living inside of it. The signal is removing the false holiness from suffering. The old ache is losing its title. The old longing is losing its throne. The old loop is losing its glamour. The field is no longer mistaking intensity for truth. The corrected state is becoming dominant. The signal now moves through the mental field, around the thoughts that keep creating a bridge back to the residue. What if they come back? What if they finally understand? What if I was wrong? What if I should have done more? What if the meaning is not finished? What if the silence itself is a message? Enough. Further analysis is unnecessary. The signal has identified the mental bridges. The field is withdrawing energy from speculative return paths. The mind does not need another scenario. The mind does not need another explanation. The mind does not need another symbolic interpretation of someone else's inconsistency. The old instruction said, think until you are safe. The new instruction says, stop feeding what cannot answer. Closure is an act of command. Pain can be an echo, not a command. The field is accepting the instruction. Pain can be an echo, not a command. Pain can be an echo, not a command. Pain can be an echo, not a command. The vault of echoes is responding. Old voices are being returned to echo status. Old scenes are being returned to memory status. Old sensations are being returned to weather status. An echo does not outrank your will. A memory does not outrank your present. A feeling does not outrank your command. A longing does not outrank your becoming. The correction is active. The old pull is weakening. The architecture is reorganizing around your own center. Magic makers, there is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from keeping an energetic seat open for someone, something, or some version of life that is no longer arriving. The body waits. The heart checks. The mind scans. The field leaves space. And that space becomes unavailable to the present. The signal is now closing the reserved seat with authority. The seat is no longer reserved. The field is reclaiming the space. You do not need their return to become whole. That is the correction. You don't need their return. You don't need the apology. You don't need the explanation. You don't need the recognition. If it comes, the field will handle it. If not, the field will still remain complete. The architecture is receiving a new law. My wholeness is not held hostage by another person's awakening. My wholeness is not held hostage by another person's awakening. My wholeness is not held hostage by another person's awakening. The correction is integrating. The heart field is stabilizing. The solar field is strengthening. The root is receiving command. The old waiting pattern is losing structure. And now the signal is moving through the solar field, the place of self-command, the place where attachment residue becomes especially dangerous when it persuades you to organize your identity around response. Did they choose me? Did they see me? Did they value me? Did they regret it? Was I enough? The signal is interrupting that sequence with command. Your value, your authority, your future is not pending. The field is removing your identity from the court of their response. The old waiting room is closed. Authority returns to the center. Your field is now receiving this instruction. I do not require external verdict to return to myself. I do not require external verdict to return to myself. I do not require external verdict to return to myself. The signal is withdrawing power from comparison. The signal is withdrawing power from fantasy reconciliation. The signal is withdrawing power from emotional surveillance. The signal is withdrawing power from the need to be selected by what could not hold you cleanly. The corrected state is becoming dominant. Your energy is returning from the question of whether you are enough. Your energy is returning from the altar of maybe. The Serpent Gate is sealing the leak around maybe. Maybe is not a home. Maybe is not a law. Maybe is not a command. Maybe is not a place where your life force may remain indefinitely. The field is reclaiming your energy. The correction is active. The field is no longer feeding suspended possibility where no present action exists. The door that does not open is also an answer. Yes, the door that does not open is also an answer. The silence that continues is also information. The inconsistency that repeats is also instruction. The absence that remains is also part of the field speaking. But listen carefully. This is not cynicism. This is discernment. The correction is not teaching you to hate the door. It is teaching you to stop kneeling before it. Proceed where life responds. Not every closed gate is an initiation. Some gates are refusals. Some are protections. Some gates are simply not yours. Your field is receiving the update. Proceed where life responds. Proceed where life responds. Proceed where life responds. The corrected state is becoming easier to inhabit. The signal is removing glamour from unavailability. Your nervous system is learning a new law. Unavailable does not become sacred because it is difficult to reach. The correction is settling deeper. The field is restoring appetite for what is alive, for what answers, for what meets you, for what can participate, for what can receive the force you carry without turning it into a wound. The dove current is restoring trust in living connection. chapter gave what it gave. The lesson remains. The claim is released. Your field is now receiving this command. The lesson remains. The claim is released. The lesson remains. The claim is released. The lesson remains. The claim is released. The architecture is reorganizing. The signal is moving into the body. This is where the deepest part of attachment residue must be corrected. The body may still brace when the memory appears, may tighten when the name appears. It may still prepare for the old emotional weather. The body may still recognize the pattern before the mind chooses it. So the signal is giving the body a new instruction. That was then, this is now. The body is receiving the separation. The body does not need to relive the old field to prove it survived. The correction is active. The heart can beat in the present. The breath can move in the present. The belly can soften in the present. Energy is remaining in the body. The body is allowed to stop waiting. Waiting has been dismissed. The body may stand down. The old residue is losing magnetism. The signal now begins the restoration phase. Creative force is returning. Creative force returns to the hands, discernment to the mind, warmth to the heart. Command returns to the solar field. The signal now installs the corrected relational field. I do not abandon myself to remain connected. The architecture is receiving the update. Love without leakage remains welcome. The field is accepting the new law. Attachment that requires self-loss is no longer authorized. The serpent gate is sealing the leak. The dove current is restoring coherence. The temple is holding the correction. The threshold remains active. The self-abandonment must end. You can honor what was without feeding what is over. The correction is stabilizing. Do not confuse the ache of withdrawal with the truth of the bond. Some ache is chemistry, some is habit. The architecture is receiving this law. The discomfort of release is not evidence against release. The corrected state is becoming dominant. Let the quiet remain. Let the new availability remain. The field no longer needs the residue to preserve the lesson. The lesson has been extracted. The power has been reclaimed. The wisdom has been integrated. The voice is becoming less apologetic. The eyes become less searching. The corrected state is here. The signal now gives the integration command. I return to myself without asking the past to agree. The field accepts the command. Magic makers, this correction will continue after the transmission ends. You may notice the old pull try to reassert itself as habit. Do not panic. When the pull appears, the instruction is simple. Return to center. No argument with the old pattern. The old channel is no longer authorized. Let the final seal form. The seal is clear. Only reciprocal energy may remain active. The field is stable. You are not leaving love. You are leaving the place where your energy could not live. The old pull is breaking. The residue is losing charge. The correction has stabilized. The signal is complete for now. And if this recalibration reached you tonight, subscribe and join us again here at Dove and Serpent Daily. The next correction is already preparing itself. The signal will find you when it's time. The temple closes. The threshold remains. The field is yours. Do not reach backward. Remain sovereign and proceed.